Steve, back on the road again, this time at the University of Kentucky, which historically has been a game that Mississippi State has been very competitive in, and certainly a game that Mississippi State can win.
Yeah, unfortunately, the last two trips up here in 16 and 18, State took a loss, and the one in 16 ended a streak of 9 straight wins in the series. And Mississippi State actually has the lead in this SEC series, 24 games to 23, one of the few that State actually has an advantage in. And a lot of it's been, the decade or so of Dan Mullen's tenure there. But, State came up here our last time in 2018, played very undisciplined football, did not get a good effort from Nick Fitzgerald. And even with that, it was a 14-7 game in the fourth quarter. When Brian Cole made an interception, you felt like, okay, here we go to make our move. But I tell you, it was an electric atmosphere that night here at Kroger Field. It'll be much different this time.
Yeah, no doubt. The COVID reduction will keep it a little bit more quiet than it's been in the past. Kentucky, generally early in the year, has been very supportive of their football program, and we are here obviously early in the year, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Kentucky prides themselves, at least this year, on running the football. They've got an athletic quarterback and some running backs that can move the chains.
Yeah, and even without Cavassier Smoke, I mean, this is a potent running game, and Smoke's not expected to play. Had some cartilage torn in his rib cage last weekend against Ole Miss. But even without it, I think he only went for 26 yards last week, and they still went for 408. Now, the Ole Miss run defense leaves a lot to be desired, but that is the bread and butter of this Kentucky team. That is Mark Stoops, play great defense, stop the run, and then establish the run, which gives Terry Wilson the play-action option. And listen, he's a guy, too, that needs the dual-threat option to be a successful quarterback. He is really more of a one-read guy, and he'll tuck it and go. That's what State's job one, I think, is tonight, is keep Terry Wilson in the pocket, make him become a quarterback.
Well, and the way you do that is to stop the run. They're going to try to run the football and get in short yardage situations on third down. If you can get them in a 3rd and 7, he's proven that he is susceptible to throwing the football, and your defense can play the pass.
Yeah, and the Bulldog run defense has been among the nation's best, but to be honest, they have not been truly tested as they will be tonight. That's the bigger issue, is the State run defense against a running attack that has been very successful, and even in game one, Kentucky found some success running the football. They are an 0-2 team, and here's the thing too: we talk about we're a desperate team at 1-1, and we need this one, even though many people saw this as a potential loss going on early on. It's a toss-up game. So when you drop a game like we did last week to Arkansas, you've got to make it up somewhere. That's tonight. But in Kentucky's situation, very dire. If they go 0-3 and still have, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia remaining on schedule, a losing season is virtually assured.
That's right, and it is a very big game for both sides. And as you pointed out, Mississippi State coming off of last week's game against Arkansas, it does put a little more added significance on the win here tonight.
Yeah, and KJ Costello has to play within himself. And I think Mike Leach even mentioned that on Monday, that KJ at times tries to do too much, tries to get 2 touchdowns on one play, and a lot of that's just being a competitor. But the better part of being a competitor is playing within the offense, playing within yourself, not trying to do too much, because when you do that, you press. You throw balls up for grabs. You force it in there perhaps when there's coverage underneath. You don't survey the field as well as you should. So I think Cage is going to bounce back this week. And listen, we know from watching the Kentucky interviews, they're going to drop 8 in coverage. And I think one of the bigger concerns, and we discussed this on the drive up, is that Arkansas, even though they only rushed 3 most of the time, there were times they got some push in the middle and kind of obstructed the quarterback's throwing motion. So that'll be something to watch tonight, because Kentucky obviously kind of prides themselves on having some beef there in the middle. So that'll be an interesting matchup. What happens at center at Mississippi State? Does Cole Smith start? Does James Jackson start? Do they kind of play by committee? We'll see. But the bottom line is the Bulldog offense has got to get on track and then give the defense a chance to get some rest.
Yeah, and the key to that offense really is going to be to find out how available Kylan Hill is. Kentucky has been susceptible to the run game this year, and Mississippi State will run the football if Kylan Hill is healthy. Of course, we won't know that till he gets out here and goes full speed on the field. But do you not feel that Mississippi State's pass offense plays off of that run game and will be the key factor for a win tonight over Kentucky?
I think that's what you have to do to get them out of that zone. Because listen, you got 8 guys out there guarding 5, and so yeah, you can find some holes in the zone and sit down and make some plays, but it's difficult to make big chunk plays when there's that many people dropping in coverage, especially with two high safeties. You've got to be able to run the football to pull those safeties into the box, and then that, of course, opens up the long passing game. Colin Hill, we were told earlier in the week that he would be available to play. We're told privately that he did pass all the tests necessary to be able to play. He tweets out earlier today, for everybody that's asking, I am playing today. That's about as good as it gets. So, again, we've heard it from the head coach. We've heard it from some trusted sources. Now we've heard it from the man himself. So this is a guy, too, that and Colin's an emotional guy. And, he was very frustrated last week that he wasn't able to get back in the ball game. He said he can't wait for defenses to drop 8 again. He's ready to get going. I think he's a motivated Colin Hill. He's a very talented Colin Hill, very passionate guy. Get him some touches to get him going early, and I think that bodes well long term. But here's the deal. State dominated that first quarter last week, 170 to 14 yards, and it was still a 7-7 ball game. So you've got to be able to move not just between the 20s, but when you get in the red zone, you've got to be able to cash in, and that was something that State really struggled with last week.
Well, and in these close games, Steve, special teams comes into play. Mississippi State showed early on that they can play well in the special teams, particularly field goals, extra points, and kickoffs. Do you feel like that's going to be a part of this as we go forward?
I do, because I think this is going to be a close ball game. I really do. And the odds makers have it. I guess yesterday it dropped to a 1-point advantage and then back up to a 3. And listen, that doesn't mean they know anything. They're just trying to get some late action on both sides of the line. But the bottom line is this. This series for the last few years has been very competitive. And, last year State needed a big play from Garrett Schrader late to put that game away. And let's be fair, Garrett made a couple of freshman mistakes last year that kept Kentucky in the ball game, but ultimately it was a very competitive game. We expect this one to be as well, and I think special teams will play a big part in that.
We'll stay with Gene's Page 247 Sports as we cover Mississippi State at Kentucky today, and we'll be back with you following the ball game.